Dear viewer, welcome to this land. We are in Nyamira actually, and we are following a project that is being pursued by the conservation team. And where we have been, or where we are right now, it is their seed bank, and they have given a lot of information, the reasons behind that project, the challenges they are facing to do with the policy and the frameworks around it, and generally what they are trying to do to ensure that those projects are beneficial to the community. And therefore, welcome and have a watch. Thank you.
For conservation team. Yes. For now, in my team, Arifuni to Chagua. The project is called Chagua. This is our seed bank, and the project under innovation. So my name is Sylvia. I'm the operations manager at conservation, and I'll ask Joyce to introduce herself, and we'll go in this. Introduce myself.
This Joyce.
Joyce.
Good evening. Welcome to our seed bank. I'm Grace Conservation, Chagua Seed Conservation Advisor.
Okay, good afternoon. My name is Julia Sosoro. I'm among these members.
Good day.
Good day.
Wisman Sam Jaguar. I'm an intern at conservation.
Hi, Juliet Mora, an intern from conservation.
Hi, my name is Susan. I'm doing conservation.
Journalist, hello.
So thank you for joining us today. I'm excited to talk about Chagua. So as conservation, we've had a number of projects, and our projects ideally are based on social entrepreneurship, women empowerment, and clean technologies. We also had a climate education project. We started in conservation. Actually, we went about training farmers about how to plant local vegetables within the Chagua project. But initially we had our school trainings where we went to different schools and we trained students about the need for planting trees within our region and how it could benefit our climate. So at the moment, today, as you've come as Inuka, our main objective is to showcase our Chagua project, which has been a project that educates farmers within our region, which is in Nyamira. We partnered with the local government and the agricultural ministry, and they gave us agricultural extension officers who helped us with the trainings. And we also partnered with the community, our youth within the community, and we went to the community and we collaborated with the community in the formulation of a manual on how to produce local vegetables. So once we developed the manual, we went about identifying specific areas that were simple to implement, and the key areas that we identified were in compost manure production and also in the biopesticide production. So our main aim as Chagua was to bring about food security within our region and promote food sovereignty. So within our region, there are many people who have small parcels of land, and these small parcels of land are mostly taken to have intensive farming. So people actually implement farming of maize and tea, which ideally is not good for our soil biodiversity. So what we aim to do as Chagua is to change that mindset and bring about a choice within the farmers so they can be able to choose which crop they would plant. And in the long run, bring biodiversity back to our soils. So the reason why our soils have degenerated in quality is because of the intensive farming practices and the fact that they have used chemicals in the process. So they've used chemical manure and chemical fertilizers, so that's the same thing, but chemical fertilizers in the process and also biopesticides, chemical pesticides in the process. So we want to bring about a knowledge about how they can be able to go back to our indigenous practices, which were farming indigenous crops, and how they can ideally change their farming practices and opt for more intercropping farming practices than just standard intensive farming. So as I mentioned, we have partnered with the Ministry of Agriculture. The offices are just around here. So what we did is we sat down and we wrote a manual and we identified farming groups that farm local vegetables. And through that whole process, we sat down with them and we wrote a study manual and then later trained them about how they can go about planting these vegetables. We took them through the entire process from land preparation to monitoring the crop, using the biopesticides and the manure to plant the crops, harvesting the crop, and our main agenda was to collect seeds, because within this market, seeds are not locally available. Within agrovets, they're not available. The different species of local vegetables are not there. So we decided that we can be able to supply them the seeds if we are able to source it from them. So we wanted them to produce the seeds and then we store with them the seeds. So our training was geared towards producing seeds. And then the challenges we faced along the way was that it was labor intensive. So what you have is within a session of planting, you have to do weeding, and weeding is normally done by hand. And it reaches a point when you are harvesting the crop, it also requires hand work of picking the berries from the leaves and then drying them and cleaning them and sorting them in the process. So farmers were reluctant to make the vegetables, so to make the seeds from the vegetables. So we had to put in an incentive for them to produce the seeds. And what we told them is that we would purchase the first sack of seeds. So the seeds you see right now are around 45 kgs of seeds. We have not yet reached the 1 sack mark. So what we do is we purchase seeds from the farmers, and there are 6 farming groups. They're written on the boards that you see at the entrance. So we have Makutano, we have Yamokowoti, we have Getunwa, we have Eyetongo, we have Keruse, and we have Nyamira. So those are 6 farming groups that we have partnered with that ideally plant the local vegetables. And we have collected seeds from each of the groups except for 1. So in the long run, we hope to become a supply center for not just seeds, but any other input that is needed in the process of making local vegetables, so that we can promote the planting of our indigenous vegetables within Nyamira. So would you have any questions?
Asante. Naitwa Bulimo na kupotia Inuka TV. Swali langu ni moja, sijui kama unajua kwamba serikali ilipiga marufuku usambazaji wa mbegu hasa za kienyeji, na kama hiyo ina adhiri, na kwa jinsi gani pia marufuku hayo yanawaadhiri. Asante.
So Bulimo is basically asking, so the government recently banned trading in local seeds. So he is asking how that has impacted them and in what way.
Yeah, I'll have some answer that question.
Okay, so we all understand the question, right?
Yeah.
And that is one of the challenges that we are facing. We all know that food security is not just a national matter, but it's international, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Now, the government has put a law which it amended around 2012 in the Planted Seed Varieties Act, Cap 326, Section 10, subsection 4. To be specific. So the government, in a way, in a simple language, deters the smallholder farmer to share or to sell its seeds. Are we together? Specifically, African indigenous seeds. So is that law good? That is the question. It is punitive to the smallholder farmers. Now, why is the government doing that? The government is doing that because there are corporations, international companies that have a hand in this. And that is the challenge that we are fighting. It is David against Goliath. So what would you do?
So, maybe ask a question. How have you worked around this?
Okay. At the moment, we have worked with officials in the ministry who actually know what exactly we are doing. However, they have been lenient with us. So we'll say that we just have the grace of God.
So, sorry, I just want to understand. So, is your work breaking the law? No, because I just want to understand the question. You are not expected to do that. These smallholder farmers are not expected to do that.
Yes.
And they are doing it. So I also had a question I wanted to ask before you asked that question about how they are even getting the seeds to plant, to do their farm before they even sell to you. And this question came. So, because then you are also trying to, one of the things that come up strongly is the fact that when we are trying to communicate nature-based solutions to farmers, there is the need for them to feel, not to feel threatened by the solution to their livelihood. Okay, so if, for instance, they will be in trouble for doing what we expect them to do, that would be something that, if I'm a farmer, I wouldn't want to do. So maybe a little more clarity as to how you are working around it. So if you are working with the ministry in doing this work, so the ministry is helping you to go against the law, and then how I mean bluntly, that's the question. How I need to understand the dynamics in trying to understand the work on the field, and then also how we can help, especially for Tom and I, how we support these farmers to upskill the work they are doing, to feel comfortable and safe in delivering what they are delivering.
So again, the law that you mentioned is a primitive law. It is a primitive law. And even as we go past towards Keroka, within this town, you'll find people selling the seeds along the road. There is no day they will actually be approached by KEFIS. But KEFIS is the board that sets the standards for seeds. When they feel threatened is when they will act. So the law, ideally, if I'm operating the seed bank, the person who will come for me is KEFIS, and not the government.
So, let me ask you a question. I think I can figure out. I'm not trying to create a loophole in the government and whatever. So these teams that you work with, are they interconnected? Like Makutano, what was the name? Riyama. Yeah, the 6 ones, yeah. Are they like connected? Do they come together? Because the law says you should not share or supply or sell. So, as he had explained, wise man,
the reason why that's his name. The reason why the law prohibits that is to protect corporations that are supplying seeds, you know. Yeah. But initially in African traditional society, the government also protects our culture. Initially in African traditional society, that is what we used to do. We will take seeds from, if you are in a village, you will take seeds from your neighbor and plant them. Can you bend the law around that? Because there is culture, there is Mugumo tree, and the Kikuyus who worship the Mugumo tree. And we have cases where the government wants to cut a tree, but whenever the village elders stand up to protect that tree, culture is respected. So when it comes to seed sharing, let's not say selling, because right now you're trying to empower them, yeah? Can you bend around the tradition? Because I know tradition protects that. The sharing of seeds and communal land ownerships. Is there a way you can bend around that?
Can I come in? I think the law goes into even seed sharing. That was Greenpeace has been campaigning against, that they are not allowed to share their seeds, not even sell, share the seeds. That is why there's this activism and advocacy that if we cannot even just share our seeds locally, what are you trying to push? Are you even pushing for food security anymore? That's why he's calling it punitive law.
That is why I'm saying it's not that we are refuting the part of the government saying even sharing. I'm saying like Kaluki has been there, where the government has tried to cut a tree because they feel like this area can be used for development. Even you guys were there when we were campaigning for the fig tree in Nairobi. It is over 100 years old. But what protected that tree was not the law, because the law paved way for the cutting of the tree. What protected the tree was culture. And most laws that are put in place, sometimes culture comes in and we say our tradition says this and this. Our tradition, unless that culture or practice is against human rights, that is when you see governments stepping in and going past the culture laws. So I'm asking, is there a way, Sylvia, you guys can work around incorporating indigenous knowledge to protect seed sharing in the aspect of culture? Because I know culture can bend the laws in Kenya.
Has there been an issue since you started? No. You haven't had it? No, not had any issue.
Yeah, thank you, and I want to congratulate you for the great work and taking this path, because I don't think there are many people who are doing it. And first, the Constitution and at Article 42 and 69, it talks about conserving the organic and bio items. I think you're looking into that, especially in the environment space. And that also talks, like, for example, the baobab. You can't ship the baobab out of the country, right? And apart from that, Carefree, Kenya Forest Research Institute, also has a mandate to protect trees from being transported, for example, from Kisii to Mombasa for planting. For biological reasons, yeah. Just like what we do in the mangrove, the zonation. Yeah, not all trees can come from here, need to go to be planted at the coast, maybe because of the reason that are obvious in terms of transporting them. And also internationally, for example, Colombia is a very it has a lot of biodiversity. Okay, and one of the laws, what was happening, especially during the colonial period, the first world were going there to shift a lot of those biodiversity from that country. And globally, there is a law to ensure that the biodiversity is protected in its habitat, like in that case, whereby that country is very full of biodiversity. So I'm trying to walk that journey and now come to the food production and where that law is and where it's leaving us with our culture. So I've not interacted with that part of the law, but from the forestry point of view, I know there exists such kind of law, with the reason of ensuring that the trees are being grown in their habitat. So here in Kisii, Manago has been here ever before, yeah, and that's what people have been doing. So I believe, because even at the coast, you can get a coconut from one side of the coast region to the other, because that's it's an environment, right? So I believe the same is applicable in this case. There is no harm because these seeds were not imported here. They've been here however before, right? And I believe that's what has been happening. So I think it is something that, if it is the law, as you have said, it's something to look at and see how can we look into it in the broader scope of it, and trying even to do a paper about it and do some petitions to the same ministry and look into it. But from my own personal opinion, I look at it from the journey I've mentioned regarding how I see this, the legal framework, and internationally and even in our constitution. And it makes sense that way. But within, let's say Kisii, or let's say Western, the Western side, we have our traditional indigenous group. I think that can keep on going on. But my question would be, you say you have 6 community groups?
Yes.
Whom you buy from, right? And then you stock, then you resell. I believe that's the case. So here you have 45 kg of seeds.
Yes, so we don't sell. What we do is we just store them for the farmers. What we have done, we had created an incentive for them to produce the seeds by telling them that we will purchase the first sack of seeds. And that's what we did. We haven't reached the first 90 kgs mark, but once we do, from then on it will be an exchange system where they will bring in a different variety of seeds in order to access the seeds that we have at the same time.
Yeah, my follow-up question was just on the same. Now where the sustainability, I wanted to see how money is flowing within the same.
So at the moment we're not generating any income, but we hope to increase the project in a way of making or sourcing a market for the local vegetables. Our aim is actually to find market for the vegetables within the neighboring cities in Kisii and Nairobi, so that we can. That is a challenge that we found in the community. The community would plant the local vegetables, but then they didn't have sustainable markets for their produce. So we want to expand the seed bank so that we can take the seeds from them, package them, and then source market for them within Kisii or Nairobi, and supply package the vegetables and then supply them to our clients within Kisii or Nairobi. So we want to generate income through the production of the vegetables.
So at the moment you're just encouraging them to
Stop so that
not actually to stop. You're just encouraging them to continue planting indigenous vegetables. Yeah, that's the goal right now.
Yes. And also you mentioned that they will bring a certain species for
an exchange of another species.
So you encourage multiculture. So
yeah. So what we have like on this. So I think for now, I think if you guys don't have any other questions,
to clarify. So reporters will be just linking whatever we learned here with what we learned in class. So when we are talking about the landscape of operation in terms of nature-based solution projects, one of the things that I told you guys to be keen on is the policy aspect, and you're seeing like how these policy things are playing around, how the national policy, for example, is affecting directly the operation of nature-based solutions project on the ground. Another thing that I wanted you guys to look at is the science. So you remember when I told you to look at, when you're talking about science, not just look about the modern science, but also the traditional knowledge that goes into this. So redefining science in this sense, so this local women, group of women are using knowledge that has been there for ages to, procreate or produce these seeds and avoid a situation where we're gonna have like seeds going endangered or seeds disappearing, right? Avoiding us losing the sovereignty that we've been holding as a community over the years. And I think this is what this project is trying to do. What I challenge you guys as a team is to explore how then we can link up modern science with the traditional science that is already established here to ensure that this project lives beyond just, in the wake of all the challenges, the policy challenges, the climate variation and all these things, how do we maintain these seeds over and over? So the aspect of sustainability of these seeds, right? And then there is the finance. So another thing that we mentioned is the finance aspect. She has touched on it when she was talking about, providing incentives for the farmers to keep producing those seeds. Then they are paid once they reach a certain mark, right? So how do we create value chains out of that? How do we provide financial as physical incentive? Because they are operating in a landscape where there is no other external physical incentive, like financial incentive for farmers to produce these seeds. So they're doing their best. They're putting up a model where at least farmers look up to something at the end of the game. So how can we, as a young environmental champions in your respective projects, challenge the status quo, engage other stakeholders so that we have more role players coming into the physical space? Because as you can see, they are not able to adequately address that. They haven't even raised the first sum. But if there was a bigger financial incentive, then probably we'll have more farming groups coming on board, having more seeds, and probably if there were just more than 6 groups, probably we'll be having a voice that is stronger enough to challenge, some policies like the awkward one that we're having in place at the moment, right? So just explore this landscape as a whole, look at the stakeholders that they're working with to try and implement this project. They've mentioned about women, they've mentioned about the extension workers that they're getting from, the county government. Is it the county government? Yes. Yeah, the county government. So which are other role players that can come on board? For example, we know like KCB has this project, the Green Climate Financing Project. It's like more than $150 million project. But here at the local level, these finances are not being used adequately to provide financial incentives to promote such projects that really need them, right? So this is a huge chance for us to try and punch holes into some of these gaps that exist and challenge stakeholders to step up and support such initiatives. Because as she mentioned, the aim is not just to see that the seeds are here and the seeds are sitting on the shelves. They want to promote food sovereignty, they want to promote food security, right? So it means that the main challenge that they are addressing is food insecurity and the idea that farmers can only grow maize and tea. So they're trying to diversify diets, they're trying to increase nutrition through a nature-based approach. So that's what I wanted you guys to the reporters of the day, to take note of as we continue listening to them. And thank you so much, Sylvie and the team.
Okay. I just wanted to add on what Sylvia said. You see, the reason behind also introducing this seed bank is because you see these old mamas, they were unable to store these seeds well. So when it reaches those times of planting, you get that they don't have seeds to plant. So that's why they had poor storages. So that's why we also introduce so that if they want to plant, they get them ready. And also there was diversification in their farming, whereby they came to realize that during that process of getting the smart seeds, the remains of the manago, the
African nation.
Yeah, you get that those remains, they were also the feeds to their poultry. Yeah. And even the seeds, when they have planted them and they are nice, you get them also selling them to other people, to other members. Yeah.
Okay, I also wanted to say back the policies that there is a principle in law called the hierarchy of laws. I'm sure we have heard of that. So it is in Article 2, Sub-Article 5 and 6 of the Constitution of Kenya 2010. Now, if any law that is below our Constitution is not in tandem with the Constitution, then it becomes what? Repugnant. Now, this is a law that does not even abide with international principles. So it's a law that is repugnant in a way. However, what word has conservation or Weisman against the court of law? So the court of law has to declare it that it is what? Repugnant. It is null and void because it was passed through a legislation. Legislations are done in parliament, right? So the court has to come in, or the legislators have to come in and actually repeal that kind of a law. It was introduced in 2012, so that the reason why it was introduced, there is always a reason why a law is introduced. Now, the reason why they were saying it was introduced is because now they were looking at introduction of these seeds, what do we call them? GMOs. And they did not want the sale and sharing of what? Or supply of GMO. So that is why they introduced them. But has that law helped in any way? That's the question. To me, with my opinion, it has not. In fact, it is punitive to a farmer who has done no mistake. After all, if the government is having full control on the seeds, what about when the government had no control? What about seeds coming from God? Are they not coming from God? So many questions are there should be answered. What about the food insecurity now we have in Kenya? How do we handle that? What is making that problem to be there? You will find that the major problem is actually the selling and sharing of what? Seeds. Because it has been capped, there is insecurity of food. And now the government has to answer some questions. Just the other day you saw the statement of D. I'm sure you saw it, right? So government has to answer a few questions that it cannot answer. But I don't want to be political right now.
So, can I just say something? So, I think with the conversations coming around, it is not. So, for instance, my question wasn't just to create holes in the work we are doing, but as Bosco rightly said, maybe it's time, like the way the analogy with the waste management, how certain nature-based solutions come with other inspired solutions. So maybe conservation would have to think
indigenous vegetables that have been farmed for centuries, and they have medicinal and nutritive values, of which I feel has been not the center of our diets of late. But these vegetables, if they're added within our diets, can promote healthy living and well-being within our lives. So, broadly speaking, the vegetables that we have within the shop, this is African nightshade and the spider plant, are the most popular African vegetables that I'm sure you've come across them. And they have vitamin A, we have vitamin C, they offer calcium and iron. So these vitamins and minerals are actually in all range of African vegetables, the ones that I've mentioned. Vitamin A, which is good for eyesight and proper skin, like you'll have glowing skin. Vitamin C, which is good for immunity. And calcium, which again helps us with teeth and bones. And also iron, which is good for our blood production. So it helps make sure that we have healthy blood. A spider plant and African nightshade have anti-cancer properties. There are other variety of African indigenous vegetables, which are jute leaves. I don't know if you've heard of jute leaves before. Jute leaves is mito or terere. Yes, or terere. So it has folate, which is an active ingredient during childbearing. If you're in the childbearing age, it actually helps you not have defects. Your child will not have defects when you're bearing children. and also it has anti-inflammatory properties, and it can be able to reduce the risk of heart disease. So the other vegetable that I haven't mentioned is nderema, which has anti-diabetic properties, and there are quite a number, so I won't cover all of them. But as we go on with the training, I'm sure you will find them along, and once you do, just stop and ask our team, and they will tell you the nutritive values of these vegetables. So with that, I think we can head.
Yeah, and guys, don't worry, the duties with them, Sylvia and the team the whole week. So I advise if you have more questions that you can answer now, let's just take note of them, and they're very available to answer, I believe. And also, as we see during our in-class trainings, there'll be more time to interact. So let's keep those questions, then you can always be posting to them, yeah?
All right, just clap for them.